Presiding Officer, it was welcome news indeed from Dr. Alistair Allen that there will be a summit. However, it seems like a very closed affair if it's only between the First Minister and the Prime Minister. And I would remind the Minister that what was called for by the Conservatives in this debate was a summit that would be attended by not just governments, but also local authorities and trade organisations and trade unions and third sector organisations, chambers of commerce, development boards and even GB Energy. Is that what is on offer as a result of our debate?
Minister.
I cannot say what is in the Prime Minister's mind here. I have indicated that the First Minister is open to a summit and has said so to the Grampian Chamber of Commerce. I hope the Prime Minister is similarly open to the idea. I have no idea of the guest list.
Well, this is very urgent, and I think it would be good to have some information as soon as possible about when this summit will be held, who actually is going to be invited to attend it. And I think, critically, we need to know a timetable. This is very, very urgent. And that has been the tone of the Conservative speeches in this debate, that this is an urgent situation that is unravelling in front of us. And I have news for Patrick Harvie. Net zero is still part of our aspiration, but it must be pursued with a credible plan, with public support, and with our economy and energy security intact. Because what we have currently in the rhetoric that we hear in this chamber, most notably from the fringe Scottish Greens, is ideology consistently trumping common sense. And what we are often seeing, and I speak now as a Central Scotland MSP, we are witnessing a muddled dash towards arbitrary deadlines without any serious consideration of cost. And I was grateful for the passion with which my colleague Douglas Lumsden addressed this issue, because he is reflecting the concerns and interests of his constituents in bringing this motion on behalf of the Scottish Conservatives to this chamber today. And there was some discussion from Ben Macpherson about the nature of this debate. And I actually agree with him. I often agree with Ben Macpherson. It is difficult to have a full debate in opposition daytime on this subject. So I would say a challenge to the ministers would be, with the support of Ben Macpherson, I hope, would be to have a proper full-scale debate in government time on this issue, rather than, as is the case in the previous debate that we just held in this chamber, that it's left to the Scottish Conservatives to use their opposition daytime for these sorts of debates. But let us not forget that for all the talk of net zero and all the theorising, this is a multi-trillion-pound national undertaking, and it was compressed, in my experience, to 90 minutes of parliamentary time in the House of Commons in 2019. That was the first time that this target was set. There was no vote, there was no economic impact assessment, there was no serious scrutiny, and there still is no plan. And I was one of 3 members of Parliament that day that raised concerns about the implications of such an arbitrary, and it still is in my view, an arbitrary deadline. And we are in the absurd position where the true cost of one of the headline parts of that law, retrofitting every home with a heat pump, is unknown, and it is unknowable. The cost of making public buildings compliant with net zero is often higher than the value of the buildings themselves. And people know that the reductions we achieve in Scotland, and they've been referenced several times in this debate, are being swamped by the increasing level of emissions being pumped out by countries like China and India. And the people of Scotland, the working people of Scotland, are left feeling that our politicians have lost all sense of perspective. Now, if I might come on to some specific references to speeches that have been given, I thought it was incredible that the SNP minister could not give this chamber any indication all these years later as to when an energy strategy will actually be published, because the consultation closed 2 years ago, I think this very month. Will she intervene now and tell us when will the Scottish Government, the SNP's energy policy, be announced? Or has she not got Stephen Flynn's permission in order to have the publication of that energy strategy? Will she give? I'm happy to give way. No, as usual, nothing to say, because, frankly, they are incoherent on this subject. But almost as incoherent as the SNP is Scottish Labour. How amazing was it that Michael Mara got through a speech, two speeches in this debate, and didn't mention once EPL, didn't mention it once, and he certainly didn't mention national insurance contributions, Labour's tax on jobs, which has led directly from the mouth of industry itself to these 250 job losses at Harbour Energy. Now, the reality is that Labour are in a muddle as well, and no wonder, with Ed Miliband, the ultimate zealot in charge of this policy. At all costs, he will achieve his objectives, and he's pretty much on the record as saying that. Now, our economy is becoming less competitive, our energy more expensive, and our emissions. Well, the truth of the matter is, and we should be honest with each other and with the public, is that they are being offshored to countries with lower standards and higher pollution. Why are we importing fossil fuels from regimes with appalling environmental records when we have domestic resources in the North Sea developed with world-leading environmental standards? Yeah. And the reason that is happening, and the reason why we're in this guddle, is because we have a Labour government that's peddling fantasies. And one of the biggest fantasies that they peddle is GB energy. Because even now, professionals in the energy sector have absolutely no idea what this is about. It's a slogan, it's not a plan, it's a glossy political gimmick. I can see I'm being told to wind up by the presiding officer, much to the chagrin of my colleagues, I'm sure, who are probably enjoying this speech. But net zero can only be delivered through a clear-eyed, costed, pro-growth approach. That's the change Scotland needs, and it's what the Scottish Conservatives will keep fighting for.